The Puebla UFO crash. In July 1977, hundreds of awestruck witnesses around the zone of the Sierra de Puebla, near the town of Jopla, Puebla, Mexico, apparently were able to see in the skies above them a number of falling unidentified flying objects, UFOs, some of which were even captured on film. Many of the witnesses claimed to have seen UFOs flying low, and reported they appeared to be engaged in some kind of peculiar aerial battle. Suddenly, they said, one of the objects unhooked itself, and exploded, disintegrating into thousands of sparks, crashing into the ground, with it also being said that the local Indian inhabitants had rushed to the scene of the crash, and had discovered many materials from the apparent craft. And subsequent mobilization of the Mexican army over the course of the following days made many realize that something of tremendous significance had indeed transpired, with rumors quickly spreading that a UFO may have crashed into the Puebla Mountains. The town of Jopala, to the east of the city of Puebla de Los Angeles, in the vicinity of the Gulf of Mexico, became the target for some rather serious research. As it was reported, the townspeople had also seen a solid craft explode into thousands of sparks, and subsequently crash into the ground. Witnesses not only included the local mayor, Antonio Hernandez Garcia, but also a number of school teachers, who had later been able to retrieve from the crash site pieces of rough metal from the craft. The metal was said to be still hot to the touch, and it was reported by reliable sources that the recovered metallic pieces had remained in this strange state, and for some considerable length of time. However, the most curious detail to the townspeople's story was that others had beaten them to the crash scene, and this, it is thought, to recover the pieces of the unusual material. This was in the form of a group who arrived by helicopter, and the very next day following the crash. These were obviously Americans, according to the witnesses and news media, who would later report, as it often does, and has done so in other suspected UFO crash cases, that NASA scientists had apparently visited the area. However, as with other cases, there is no official record of this NASA visit, and it seems more likely than not that these people were not scientists at all, as it was reported, and possibly noted as the source states, to be the members of a secretive U.S. Air Force alien UFO crash recovery team, who had rushed to the crash scene to retrieve as much evidence as they could, and this ahead of any others, as it was noted that Mexican researchers were greatly annoyed at the fact that foreign investigators had obtained access to the available data, and this before their own research teams. In Jopla, Puebla, it was said the local mayor had placed on his desk a piece of calcinated metal he claimed had fallen from space, with it also being stated that the mayor, Mr. Garcia, at first refused to give this up to researchers, but after several requests and repeated insistence, he yielded a piece of the metallic sheet to investigators Pablo Latape and Hector Chavarria, according to the statements by Mr. Miguel Cruz, owner of the land where the metal pieces fell. He said he heard an explosion one day in July, though he does not exactly remember the day, and when he looked up at the sky, he said he saw things falling that were fuming. He said he had to move away, because one of the pieces almost fell on him, and when he wanted to pick it up he could not, as it was extremely hot. Investigators from extraterrestrial contactos of Mexico City who arrived at the scene took several samples of this metallic fragment for preliminary analysis, which demonstrated that it was a compound metal at the base of iron, because it was attracted by a magnet, and had small oxide plates on its surface. In order to obtain more information, a group of metallurgical engineers was consulted, without being informed of the origin of the elements presented. The first thing that struck the specialists was the way the metal had been mistreated and burned, and when subjected to a spectrometric analysis, the analysis gave the percentages of the elements which entered the unknown alloy. In order to obtain a positive result, it was necessary to polish Jopala's metal indicator with great precision, 5 times in a row tests took place, which gave identical results. The metal from the craft which disintegrated in the Pueblo sky that day contained trace results of carbon, manganese, silica and chromium. The analysis showed that traces of nickel, molybdenum and copper were also found in this alloy, with the rest of the metal said to be iron. One fact was certain: the metal had been subjected to a very high temperature. By other chemical processes was the so-called element from outer space questioned again, and it turned out that it was a metal of very high purity, capable of withstanding very high pressures, and very similar to materials used in furnaces that can withstand high temperatures. This according to the data provided by investigators who covered the UFO case in Puebla on July the 29th. Several other unidentified flying objects, UFOs, reportedly overflew Mexican airspace on that day, July the 29th, 1977, these being detected by radar screens, and also visually observed by crews of domestic and foreign aircraft, and it would appear, according to these investigative reports, that it may have been one of those UFOs observed, that in actual fact, may have crashed into the mountains of the Sierra de Puebla.